So when last we were chatting, I asked the question, when was the last time you set foot in a comic shop?
It's been a while. Tardy's Collector's Corner, but I it's probably been 6 months, and then before that it was probably another 6 months. Yeah, I don't find myself going to a comics shop just because I'm not buying new comics really. I don't need to rush out and get anything like I used to.
Yeah, on the regular.
Yeah, it used to be every Wednesday, boom, apparitions on my lunch break, and
Mm,
stuff like that. So, even my favorite dollar bin store, Lang's, they shut their dollar bin stuff off and they're doing something else right now. So I haven't bothered to go back
oh,
for
really?
a
That was like
while.
a treasure trove for you.
Yeah. I mean, I think they're still doing it, but in a different way. And I don't know. I haven't been over there to find out. So it's just, almost think I'm taking the year off of going to comic stores. Not because I don't like the comic stores. My funds are a little short, so
Definitely hear you on that.
yeah.
So we might use this opportunity to talk about Patreon.
Oh yeah, let's talk about Patreon for a second there. You know, for as much as little as $5 a month, you can get some wonderful nuggets of audio that we have delivered there. Some good stuff that even Mike hasn't heard, but some really good audio, positive audio, funny audio, just stuff that didn't make it into the regular.
Yep,
But
they can contribute ideas themselves for what we could read next.
absolutely, we have a lot of great ideas for our Patreon members. We just need more members to join us so that we can do it.
It's kind of a scratch your back, scratch our back kind of thing. The more we
So,
get, the more we're going to be able to add.
right.
Yeah, I was going to say, because this weekend I went into two comic shops and walked out with
What?
some
Wait,
stuff.
what?
I
Two
know, that's
comic
what I was thinking
shops?
too. What the heck? I haven't walked into the doors of one in a while. Now, did I buy anything new off the shelf? Not at all. But I went through the back issue bins and I filled in some open gaps that I had. I bought some stuff that was for gaps that I didn't even know I had. So I had picked up the Speed Racer and Racer X, the Origins collection. It was like a trade
Ooh.
paperback. So my continual obsession with Speed Racer in comic book form. I had some of the Kamiko stuff, and this was a new one. So it was just kind of like someone decided to take on that genre and make it into a comic book form. So it was like the Tommy Yoon style of art and everything. But this is from IDW, so if that tells you how recent it is,
Yeah.
it's not like vintage.
Hmm.
I finally got the last of from Boom Studios. I picked up Behold Behemoth.
What's that?
It is a giant kaiju like mess of a book. It's actually pretty good. I wouldn't say it's fantastic, but it's only 5 issues, so it was pretty darn good for those 5 issues. And that's what I liked
Hmm.
about it. It was just 5 issues. Unfortunately, and this is going to contradict everything. This is, I might have the Leonard Nimoy's goatee going on from the Mirror Universe. It was mostly due to Michael Avon Oming, I think is how you pronounce his name, his artwork. But when Bendis was at Image and he was doing a
Powers.
series called Powers,
Yeah.
I was actually getting those. And I found those to be fairly good because they were tight story arcs, like 3 issues at most, not dragged on for infinity. It was just boom, boom, next, boom, boom, next. And,
Bendis.
but yeah, then after that, it just kind of got bloated.
Yeah, I have the first couple trades of Powers. Most of them, well, I think I have like four or five of them digitally,
Mm.
and they're pretty good. I enjoyed them, obviously, because I bought them, but Yeah, I just other than his, that was his early work is what I consider. So even like some of his Marvel stuff was good. It's just his DC stuff was just did not connect with much of an audience, including me, and it's too bad. It was a gamble by DC to hire him for a revamp of Superman, a revamp of the Legion of Superheroes, and whatever else he touched just didn't work, and he
Mm.
quickly bailed out and went back home. So
Yep, I'm taking my ball with me. Yeah, the downside is that with the current continuity being as it is and people's demand is, this is the way it is going forward and you can't go back. It's like, it's one of those things where he just like, you know, crapped on the dining room table and just walked away with it, left it there. And then everybody else is coming in afterwards going like, who's going to pick this up?
what's that smell?
Yeah, it was just like, so how do you repair something like that? It's like it makes it very difficult, and that's where it's as much as like people are beholden to continuity, it still just doesn't quite work when somebody botches it up. And I'm looking at you, Hawkman. It's like one writer team comes in, changes the whole like dynamic, and then everybody else that comes in after has to kind of like, well, that's the new normal. So how do we go from here? Where do we go from here? I
Right.
think infamously or famously, however you want to say it, when Alan Moore transferred the rights or the writing of Miracle Man to Neil Gaiman, it's like, just so you know, I'm going to leave it where everything's done. There is no question that there's not really a story to go from here. So, good luck with it. Kind of, I'm going to just seal everything up, and but you can take over after I'm done.
Has Marvel done anything with Miracle Man since they bought the rights to it, other than reprint?
I think they finally are up to new stuff because they've reprinted all of Alan Moore's run with Rick Veitch. Now they're doing the Neil Gaiman, and they've done the Neil Gaiman stuff with Mark Buckingham. I think they did all the Golden Age, the Silver Age, and now I think it's like either the Modern Age or something like that. I can't remember. I got all the Alan Moore ones, but I never really dove deep into the Neil Gaiman ones. I kind of hit and miss on those, so I wasn't really following that one too tightly. And but yeah, I feel like they finally are back to doing something new, but it's not making waves. I mean, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to. But it's just it could be great, but I don't know. I haven't picked it up. Maybe something worth reading.
Maybe.
Down the road, let's put it down on the list for another book to
Right, yeah.
go through.
That's what I was going to say too. Is I do want you to read. You mentioned Hawkman an awful lot, and I want you to read the Jeff Johns Hawkman series and how
Oh,
he interpreted and corrected a bunch of things because it was pretty good, and then new writers screwed it up again. So we'll have to put that on the list as well.
yep.
That was early Jeff Johns when he knew what he was doing. The list is getting really long.
We'll be around, so follow us, and we'll be here for quite some time.
You're listening to And This Is Why I Love Comics.
Andy and Mike. Andy and Mike.
Please elaborate.
And welcome to another episode of And This Is Why I Love Comics. I'm Andy.
And I'm Mike.
And we're back again. Thanks for joining us. If you listened to last episode, we talked about John Byrne's Fantastic Four. I hope you liked it.
It was fantastic.
It was fantastic. I did get a person saying how we didn't really review what we read. We talked in general terms, but we didn't go page by page. And that's true. We didn't. We haven't gone page by page for quite a while on things. We did early on, and now more we just talk about things in general. But if you want to hear us go page by page on some things, please let us know,
Yeah.
and we will keep that in mind. So, welcome to the show. We are old men talking about comics, new and old, and how we feel about things, and that's just the way it goes. We know our audience. Our audience is generally the same, but if you're not in their over 50 category, then please let us know that too, because we like the younger folks as well to join in on the conversation.
Yeah, they could teach us a thing or two
Yeah,
about
what we're missing out.
computers and microwaves and
Right.
cable television.
Reset my little digital watch.
Yeah, my VCR is flashing 12 again. Can you help? How does this remote work?
Go change my channel.
Where's my clicker?
I've tried a couple things. Like the last episode, I called it John Byrne's Fantastic Four. And then I thought, that doesn't get any clicks. So I said John Byrne's Fantastic Four overrated? Question mark. And so suddenly we picked up like a couple more, and it's like, oh, so I got to be gimmicky on my titles. Is that it?
The bait and switch. Actually, I think
I
it's
did
called clickbait in the
right
today's
clickbait.
vernacular.
Yeah, I don't really want to get into clickbait, but it's an interesting experiment. I did get a message from Jamie Hood from J Hood Comics on the YouTube. He said that his latest episode was about Jack Kirby, and it was inspired by our conversation about Jack Kirby.
He's got a nice clickbaity kind of title to it as well. Basically talking about like, you know, what went wrong with Kirby in the 70s.
Yeah, so I look forward to seeing that, and you, the listeners, should go check it out too on YouTube.
Yeah, he's got some nice visuals to go along with his dialogue.
Yes, it does.
Here it's the theater of the mind.
That's right. The Jack Kirby episode, if you want to know what it was. We talked about Black Panther. It was episode 52. So, yeah, we've talked about quite a few things, new listener, including Darwin Cook's Parker. We try to hit independent, Marvel, DC, whatever we like. The last few episodes, we've hit the Legion of Superheroes, Jack Kirby, about Shazam, and Scott Pilgrim we've hit upon. We've done some quizzes, Neil Gaiman's Sandman, Weapon X, let's see, from Barry Windsor Smith. That was great. Lock and
Something's killing the
Key.
children.
Yeah, Marvel's Iron Man Extremis, Kingdom Come, Reckless. Ooh, that was good.
That was
Reckless.
good, yep. Have you heard, though, that Amazon's picked up the Criminal line and potentially going to make that into a TV series? So Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips, Criminal. Yeah, the series is different because it's like the different story arcs with completely different characters. Some characters might show up in the background, kind of like, oh yeah, that guy, you know. But it's not like you can follow one character all the way through. So it's kind of not. I mean, it's not really an anthology, but because there's one in particular called Last of the Innocent, I think is the name of it. And it's basically an analog of Archie grown up. And so Archie basically comes back to the Riverdale, if you would, and to see what's happened to the town. And it's all these things are. It's a fantastic read, but it's one of those that's made even better when you really see it through the lens of this is Ed Brubaker doing an Archie story with his sensibilities. So very good. Highly recommend.
I tuned into Disney Plus today, and I noticed that Marvel's, your favorite character from the movies, Captain Marvel.
I'm trying to butt my lip. It's
is on Disney Plus now. So I thought, okay, I don't have time to watch it all, but I'll catch the beginning of it. Now, I did not hate the original movie as much as you did,
I haven't seen it, so all I can say is that I just have no interest. Not that there's hate, not that there's disdain. It's just zero interest.
Again, I didn't hate this one from what I saw. Now I have not finished it. I don't know. It kind of jumped right into the plot and was a little confusing because it has multiple switches of characters, and visually I was a little disappointed. Like some of the special effects the green screen was a little wonky, I think, and I'm just trying to be entertained, of course. So if it's entertaining, I'll give it a C plus. There's a couple movies I haven't seen yet, including Indiana Jones' latest, and this one. Yeah, I just finished Reacher season 1, and it was excellent.
I liked season 1. Season 2 is a bit different.
Yeah, that's what I hear too. So I almost don't even want to go to season 2, but I will. But I might not rush into it. I'm in like halfway through Jack Ryan season 1, and that is pretty good as well.
Yep. And it does have it wraps up. I wouldn't say it wraps up nicely. It's almost it wraps up abruptly. Like, oh, I guess that's that.
Yeah.
So it's like a little anticlimactic. Like, I think it was one of those things where it's like, there's a bunch more stories we could do. It's like, I'm kind of done. Oh, okay. Well, we'll just say you're done.
Wrap it up.
Yep. Yeah. Last episode, kind of turn off the lights when you're done.
So that's what I'm watching right now. I don't have a ton of time to watch. So when the kiddies are gone to school and I'm eating my breakfast or something, I'll catch something for a little bit.
Yeah. When there's this much out there and available to watch, it's hard to feel like, okay, I'm going to watch this, because it's almost like it's something paralysis, decision paralysis. Is like, there's so many things and you're like, oh, that'd be good. That'd be good. That'd be good. That'd be good. Do I want to spend the time? Do I, and you just keep flicking through and you're like, and then you never really sit down to watch anything. And then the other part is like what you said is, do I want to be committed to watching a thing for the duration to complete it? We've opted to drop like Amazon. We're like, yeah, we're kind of done with this. Not really having things shipped to us. So that's kind of going away. Amazon just jacked the prices up again for like, you don't want the ads. That's the whole point of why I got Amazon.
Right.
Pay an extra $3. He's like, oh, okay, I'm out. So we're wrapping up our time with Amazon. And I was like, okay. Is there anything I want to binge before I call it quits with Amazon? And it's like, nope, can't see anything. And that's including the fact that I've only watched like maybe 3 episodes of The Boys. And that was as far as I got in that series. I did like Stephen Merchant's, and unfortunately I can't even remember the name of the show, but it was like a bunch of like community, like people who had to serve community service, and they all get together, and the antics that ensues from there. But that was a good for the first season. I guess there was a second season, but I never got around to seeing that one. But Stephen Merchant's really good. What's that?
Was that Misfits?
I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the first season was good. The second season, we kind of lost its way, and my wife and I both quit on it. The second season was like,
oh no, because I love Stephen Merchant. That dude's hilarious. His cameo in both Hot Fuzz as the owner of the Swan, and his cameo in my favorite TV show of all time, Garth Marenghi's. Well, I shouldn't say, because Mystery Science Theater has always got a soft spot in my heart, except for the new stuff, the original run. But Garth Marenghi's Dark Place is absolutely brilliant, and Stephen Merchant plays the chef at the hospital, and it's the best, most hilarious show I've seen. So yeah, brilliant stuff. So how different was that album? Okay, so just for the sake of continuity and understanding where we're coming from, in the fever for Star Wars was so high that anything Star Wars related, Even the Christmas or holiday special was something that was like a must see, but the Star Wars LP that was basically a truncated version of the Star Wars movie. It was on vinyl. How much of the movie did that really encapsulate? Or, because they obviously had to cut quite a bit of it because it's only audio, but they clips from the movie to make it. So it was like,
I mean, it was quite a bit. I remember a lot of the quotes, but I'm sure they cut most of the dialogue to the essential bits and pieces. It's been a while since I've heard it, so I remember quite a bit having listened to that forever, over and over and over again.
Yeah, it was almost a religion at that point because Star Wars was everywhere on everything, and whatever they could do to, make knockoffs of it as quickly as they could, like Star Crash and Battle Beyond the Stars and Message from Space. That Japanese.
It was everywhere, but it was also that was it. Like that's all they did. There was no, extended universe books and stuff like that. I mean, there was a couple books, but there was a big long gap between when Star Wars returned and then it was everywhere and still is everywhere. But
yeah. Have you gone back to read Alan Dean Foster's Splinter in the Mind's Eye?
Yeah, I have. And actually, I only read it one time, and it was just a couple years ago. Like, I never read it when it originally came out. I remember my brother owning it, and he had read it, but I never got a chance to read it until a few years ago. And it was good. It was entertaining. Of course, it was not what.
Budding
in continuity.
Yeah, the budding romance between Luke and Leia became very awkward when the other movies came out. It's like, clearly this is no longer in canon.
Right. And I mean, what happens in a different galaxy stays in a different galaxy. So, whatever they want to do. We don't understand alien, love.
Yeah. How strongly do you stand by, or if at all, by the fact that Alan Dean Foster wrote the original Star Wars movie versus George Lucas making claim that he wrote it, even though he's never written anything before or after?
There's probably some truth in it. It happened a lot back in the 70s and 80s. And I mean, for all we know, AI writes all the books now anyway, so
I had taught at some graphic design program or a couple different schools as an adjunct professor, and I remembered a couple of them where they would talk about just mixing. Did you run a plagiarism check? And it's like, plagiarism check, now what I taught was design. So it wasn't like you could really plagiarize design. But that was part of the software for grading anything that got turned in, regardless of what course it was for. And I'm just thinking like, there's some amazing stuff out there that is checking to see if a student just lifted whole cloth out of a book or whatever, and it did all the legwork for you to make sure that this was not stolen material. I thought that's absolutely fascinating. That's brilliant. Whoever came up with this software, because it did it like instantly. Like, yep, this is, like if you cited something and if you made certain that you did it correctly, it would kind of flag it, but just say like it's properly noted and there's a bibliography and all that other stuff. But and I got to thinking about that now. It's like, how do they check? Is there something similar that can detect some AI writing for students?
Yeah, I think there is. I had read somewhere that they have something for that, but how do they know? I think at one point I read some article where the check caught the original paper that they were checking. Like it was some weird
looped in on itself.
Right, yeah, and then they thought they were plagiarizing their own paper. There's ways to go around it too. I'm sure there's, AI has already taken over. We just don't know it yet.
Yeah. Actually, I'm not here. This is the AI version of me.
I knew it.
Yep, that's why I'm laughing at all the jokes in them.
Right. My AI detector knew that and then told me.
Well, speaking of creating, before there was AI, we were trying to do stuff back in the day. I can look back at it and going like, the naivete of youth. You and I met in high school, and
Ninth grade.
yep, had an affinity that you had enjoyed writing and had ideas, tons of ideas, and were creative and able to develop things through like years of gaming and engagement and comics and lore and all this stuff. You knew what you were doing. And then I liked to doodle and had sketches and stuff like that, and thought maybe I could make a go of it, and went to college for it. And during all that time, we were definitely kicking out some ideas. And I think a lot of my ideas that I had stemmed from various games we played.
Yeah, a lot of it. We either had an idea and made a character out of it, or the character became the idea. It's we certainly used role playing games as a starter point, test subject for a lot of our ideas. That we'd come up with a campaign idea or some sort of thing, and I'd go, well, let me write up an origin, and then boom, suddenly there's a story idea in it. Or you'd go like, hey, let me create some character, and then you created the costume for your guy, and suddenly you had a Kryptonian, and there's just some wonderful creative times back then when we wanted to break into the comic book community and create our own stories and get published, and we had some interactions with some publishers, both small and large, and some certain success, some not. It was a fun time. I look back and think, even though some of the stories we're about to tell are disappointing in some ways, it's fun to look back and think how close we weren't at the time.
Yeah. I look, because there's some things we got that did get published, but it was by such a small. I wouldn't even call him a printing company, because I think the dude worked at Kinko's. So that was. Do you remember? I think the first thing that we got quasi published was through GR Press or something like that. And that was like the Grand Rapids Comic Company or something like that. And I feel like it was GR Press, but I wasn't certain if that's the actual name now, looking back at it. But
it was something like that.
Yeah. And they had, it was like the GR Vengers. And that was like the main title. And it had a bunch of kind of odd characters that were very specifically referenced Grand Rapids and Grand Rapids lore. And we had a little backup stuff in the back there of that one.
Yeah, we didn't have anything to do with Grand Rapids on that.
No, ours was, completely.
The only thing I remember on that, we created a character and a storyline, and I don't remember where that idea originated. I think it was your idea with the elements. Not quite like air, earth, water, but it was more like the metal. Was it a DC character you made first, and then?
Yeah. It was a cross between my fixation on James Bond, because it was originally called Goldfinger.
Yeah, that's right.
And then obviously we couldn't, when we're just playing a game, it's fine to call the character Goldfinger. But you couldn't call him Goldfinger if you were trying to do something serious with him. But yeah, he was basically like a construct. I don't know why I didn't make the association that DC already had the Metal Men, which was pretty much the same. But these were all like, we went the different route with the precious metals. So it was like gold, silver, diamond, even though that's not a precious metal, but it was kind of like anything.
Substance.
Yeah, valuable substances. Yeah. And then there was like titanium or something like that, or something. I just remember there was like 4 or 5 of them, but they were all made for like evil intent. And the Goldfinger character actually was more of it's like Booster Gold meets the Metal Men.
Metal Men.
Yeah.
It was like, I never associated it, but they were like golems, They were metal golems from D&D kind of thing. Except in human form for the most part. And we called it Gold Strike or something like that.
Yep, just had to find something that was just far enough off for legal reasons not to get us in trouble.
It was a fun idea. I think based, like, you had the original creation, and then my idea was to move it forward in the future, like a apocalyptic, like he appears there and you wonder why he's there and stuff like that. I don't fully remember the total story. The only thing I remember about that story, or at least about us trying to get it published, is an encounter later on when we wanted to do another backup story, and we tried to kind of push our way, our thought into that, and we met with them at their house or something like that, and had a discussion. And I think this was the last meeting we went to too. It was like, after this, we were so fed up, or at least I was. And all I remember is after talking with them, you said, you said, your leg is shaking. And and it was true, because that was like, back then I would shake my leg whenever I was upset, and you could just tell.
Yeah, it's like your mood ring.
My leg was shaking so bad that you could read that. I've reached a point where
we're done.
I'm not taking this anymore, and unfortunately, it collapsed after that, for me anyway. That's for sure.
Yeah, and that was an odd one too, because that one, not only did that happen, but I think because we quit, it turned out that was also in a terrible part of town, that we were just, again, the naivete of youth and the sense of our immortality when you're young, that we were just like, whatever, we can walk in and out of these neighborhoods, we're fine. Right. And then we didn't go back for the next session. And I think, didn't they say like they were accosted by some people in the alleyway?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
it was exactly. Like the very next meeting that they were going to have. That was the event, or that was the group we went to, and we went downtown one time. We met on the pedestrian walkway, like the pedestrian plaza that was downtown Grand Rapids. And I feel like we sat there, maybe it was with this group, but I remember some homeless guy coming up to us, and
oh, yeah.
And so we're sitting there talking about comics. We had papers and sketchbooks and notes, and we're all talking about this like shared universe. We're all getting really kind of excited about this possibilities. Homeless dude comes up to us, is like, "What are you all doing?" And it's like, we're just, we're trying to be civil and stuff, but it's like, "I'll be your superhero. Look at me." And this dude just kind of struck poses for us. And I was like, well, oh boy.
It's really awkward when he took his pants off and we started drawing him,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That was such a bizarre, everything about that particular run was odd. It was really, really odd. But that was during my Jim Lee / Rob Liefeld cross hatching days. It's like, if you don't know what you're doing, just cross hatch it until it's into oblivion. You don't have to really know anatomy. Just cross hatch. You're good. You can hide
Right.
everything under that.
Yeah.
It's
We
like,
all go through stages, and that was an interesting one for you, but
yeah. I was also going to say, like, the time that you and I think it was our first Chicago Comic-Con, where we were going to meet with the fine folks at Image, and we, instead of living in Grand Rapids, Chicago's not that far away. We said, let's just take the train. And during the train ride, we had mapped out entire story arcs, and we were ready to go. And we had that sketchbooks, and you had story script plots and everything. But again, naivete. We were just, I wouldn't even call this, we were just stupid. Not understanding, like, one, what businesses were like, and then two, what a convention was like, and the fact that hotels charge tax. And neither one of us were old enough to have a credit card. So when we got to the hotel, we only had cash. And then they were like, hey, yeah, it's this for the hotel plus hotel occupancy tax plus state tax plus city tax plus since you're paying in cash, we're gonna have to have some cash up front in case you trash the room. And all of a sudden it's like all of our money was gone.
Right, yeah.
And
that was
then
my convention money.
Yeah, it was like anything you were going to do to buy comics while at this convention, gone. It was all gone. And we had no idea. And then it was like,
we had to eat.
We got to eat. And I have no idea what inspired or what bad idea it was, but I had brought 3 cans of tuna. Just the cans of tuna. There was no bread, there was no mayonnaise, there was nothing else. And a can
What
opener.
were you thinking?
No one in the right mind is like, well, I got my underwear, I got my shirts, I got my pants, I got my badge, and 3 cans of tuna will do it. It's like, no one's thinking that. And I just remembered that you and I were like, well, we're gonna bust open this last can.
Tuna it is.
Tuna it is. And it's like, we starved for the entire weekend. And it's like, we survived on 3 cans of tuna. It was such a...
luckily we bought the train tickets before. So
man, we would have been stuck in Chicago. Yeah. There's a round trip tickets and everything. Oh man, everything about it was just like, when did this happen? No one told us this was going to happen. And there was no way of, like, no one had cell phones. So one other key highlight of trying to get into comics. Now, obviously, being the art, I was able to bring a portfolio. Doing writing, I always felt like, dude, you are screwed. Comic conventions are not for writers.
Nope, I was pretty screwed. Yeah. I do remember a highlight would be probably it was Detroit when they were still in the school. And we met with Brian Murray. Yep. And I just remember walking up to him and he looking at your portfolio and he's really excited because he was a nice guy. And he was really excited. And he you were obviously the artist for it. And he looked at me and he went, "Inker? No. Colorist? No." "Oh, you're the writer then." I was like, "Yeah, that's me. I'm the
writer." Yeah, that dude was, if you don't know who Brian Murray is, he did the very first few issues of Supreme for Image Comics, and he helped save Rob Liefeld's Youngblood by his coloring.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Back in the day. But he also did, I think, Young All-Stars for DC.
Yeah, I have all those too. And he did a good job. Like he wasn't a cross hatcher.
No.
And his art was pretty good. unique. You could recognize it as his, and it didn't fully look like somebody else.
Yeah.
But I think he faded in and out of comics, so I think he went back to advertising and stuff. But
Yeah.
certainly talented colorist, that's for sure.
Yeah, and his work was always good, but yeah, that was great. And that was also that convention. And I know, the intent of this kind of conversation is talking about like how we're trying to break into the industry, but a lot of it has to do with conventions. That was our key approach, because it was like doing it by in person and getting that direct feedback and trying to get some stuff. But it was always positive. You always left with a big, like, yeah, this is going to be great. And then not a lot came out of any of it.
Right.
And then you realize, oh, yeah, you can talk a big talk, but you're not going to get anybody to necessarily really follow up. You'll say, yep, nice things about people while they're there. But then after that, it's kind of like, sorry, just don't really have anything for you.
Right. And then they had, probably 30, 40 people, to 100 people, talking to them, wanting to get in the industry.
Yeah.
And they just, unless you're like the last person to talk to them and they really liked your stuff, you kind of get lost in the mix, especially if you're early on. It was fun. I still think our ideas were good. Maybe not all of them were the greatest and stuff like that, but it just was a weird time, and conventions were where we went and what we did. I submitted stuff to DC and got rejection letter, which was always cool.
Yeah, even the rejection letters were nice.
Letterhead and stuff. I think we talked about it with Matt 10.0.
Oh yeah,
rejection letters. It was just good to get, but even just mailing your stuff in, especially as a writer, either they skim it or they don't have time for it, and it's just that's not how you got into the business 90% of the time as a writer. As an artist, they could look at it pretty quick and decide, if they want to give you a second chance or something. But
yeah, one comic convention that still haunts me to this day was it was a different Chicago. I think at this point it was called Wizard World, and we had gone, and they had Artist Alley, and sitting by himself, no one around, no line, nothing, was Mike Allred. And I'm like going, oh crap, that's the dude from Madman Comics. And it's like, I'll just see if he, and you had written a Dr. Fate story that I had drawn. And this was the year that I said, you know what, I'm going to go really streamline. And instead of bringing my original, sketches or my original pages, I brought photocopies so that if somebody liked him, I would just say, here you go. Here's a pack of photocopies and with my contact information on it and all that stuff. I thought I was like king of the hill on this one because I had it all sorted out, prepped and everything. It was like a Boy Scout would have just tipped his head and said, well done. I was like, I was that prepared. So I remember we were walking around and I came across Mike Allred. He was just by himself. And I said, hey, do you mind taking a look at my stuff and let me know what you think? And he goes, yeah, sure. I got nothing else. And it's like, okay. And he started looking at it. Oh, Dr. Fate, he's my favorite. It's like, and I'm thinking like, score. And then he's like, oh, these are really good. And it's like, oh, even better score. And then he goes, do you have these originals? I go, yeah, but they're back at the hotel. He's like, oh, dang, that would have been great because I would love to have inked these things. I got nothing else to do. And I'm like going, I could have just sat there and watched him ink my pages, made them look like a freaking $1,000,000. And even if that never happened to anything, like it never came to anything, I would have had originally inked pages from Mike Allred on my work. And I highly doubt that would ever happen today.
Right.
that dude's all over the place. So, he's got a lot more demands on him and fans following him and everything. But this was like early in his career, and it was just like, dang it. And I still regret that. One that was an interesting encounter was Howard Chaykin. And, again, he's one of those, such a very distinct look. Chaykin's art is always, granted, a lot of his heroes, the male heroes, look very similar. Like his American flag could just as well be his Dominic Fortune, which could just
Black
as well
Hawk.
be Black Hawk. They all kind of look the same, but it's extremely well done. I think he, like, even his Midnight Men, that character looked identical to them as well. So, any event, all that to say, he loved my work. He's like, "Why aren't you doing things for?" I mean, he chewed me out, and it was his praise that he was trying to say to about like my work was done in such a Howard Chaykin way that I felt like I just got chewed out by my parents. It was like M and F, MF and this, and why aren't you should be working. Why aren't you behind the table here working on something? Your stuff. And I'm like going, yeah, yes, sir, I'd like to, but sir, I gotta find
my goal.
But yeah, holy crap, it was hilarious. That dude was just, man, I couldn't tell whether he was like, he thought my stuff was good or it was terrible. You would be hard pressed to find out either, because that just the way he cared, he talked about things. It was like, I hope you're saying nice things about what I've done, but the way you say it carries yourself like, I think you don't like it, but at the same point, I hear nice words in there, but yeah, it was a good opportunity. I really enjoyed meeting, again, one of those like childhood heroes, because it's like, I've got that entire, American flag, his shadow, all the stuff he had done, going back to some of his stuff on the Star Wars comics. One of the more lively conversations I had, and I know I kind of talked a little bit poorly about that experience with Steve Rude, but there was only in that I was a little disappointed. Not that, I have anything against Steve Rude at all. His stuff is absolutely phenomenal. Obviously, his, adherence to the Andrew Loomis school of art is quite evident. He's like the best practitioner of it that's ever been out there. But my issue was, that he handed off somebody's commission page to his female companion there, gave a Sharpie marker and said, fill in the blanks. And I was like, I paid for a Steve Rude page drawn, not a Steve Rude and assistant page to be done. But all that to say, I think he also looked at the same Dr. Fate pages that I had done, and he ripped it up and down, but in such a positive way. It's like, you got good ideas here, but if you had done this and this and this and this and this and this page would have been great. And he like gave me a page of sketched out, like he completely reworked that entire story.
Cool.
And like a thumbnails, he was just doing like, okay, if your composition was like this and the flow was like this, and it was just a quick crash course on storytelling. And that was absolutely brilliant. I just sat just dumbfounded, like, this took me days to draw, sir, but you just did a better job with a Sharpie marker that in 4 minutes.
But that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so I did appreciate that and that attempt to get into comics, and then meeting with the people and having them look over the artwork. Have you been to a convention and you watched other people try to present their work?
Lots. I've talked about this on the convention episode, but I used to, when you would go wander off and we'd split up and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I would watch either DC or Marvel. They'd have a back then in the 90s, they'd have a person just dedicated to critiquing art styles, stuff like that. Of course, it was all art, not writing. And they'd go through, and I would sit there kind of like I belonged, but I didn't. And just hear what the editor, whoever it was.
Mhm.
I don't remember anybody who it was, but just critique different people's art, and some people, you could tell they had a lot of room to go before they could do comics, but some of them were really good, and were really close to getting that first job, and what the editor was looking for and what they should go back and try to do. And I mean, I'm sure I spent a couple hours at least, off and on, um, through different conventions and stuff, just hearing what other artists, needed to do. It was very interesting. I learned a lot about storytelling, and what they were looking for. As a writer, you could take some of that and go, okay, so this is, kind of infer what a writer could do to make it better too. So I was trying to learn as I went, but it was very entertaining, at least, just to see what other people were expecting, and how they communicated with the editor. Back then I wasn't a huge communicator. Some would say I was still not, but that's how I learned, kind of, was hearing what other people would say. Conventions were our thing. We spent a lot of the 90s doing that. We had, I'm trying to think what all these stories I did a Dr. Fate story, like you were saying, and you drew it. I did a Nexus story from Mike Barron and gave it to him on one of these conventions that I talked about before. So I've passed around some scripts to people there. As a writer, again, it really wasn't the time or place to do it, but once in a while I would get a chance, an opportunity, and it was all fun. Usually, try to cater to a certain extent. I remember the story that we did, and Brian Murray looked it over. It was a Prophet
Oh
story, I
yeah,
think.
that's right. It was Rob Liefeld's Prophet.
Yeah, and because Image was super hot, and so we thought we'd do that character, and he was excited to see it. He liked the villain that we had come up with,
Oh.
and
I forgot about that.
yeah,
Yeah.
certainly for young Andy, it was fun to go out and be a little more extrovert than than I
Oh,
was.
yeah, you and I
Was,
both. Yeah, I remember a few times, quite a few times, uh, looking at the people in front of me in line, and you just stand in that line forever, absolutely forever. And I remember a couple of times just looking at the person in front and looking at the person behind, and either they were extremely talented individuals, and then I look at my stuff going like, I should probably step out of line. And then, or it was like, dude, what are you thinking? Have you looked at a comic that you think that your stuff is going to be up and you could supplant like a seasoned professional with what you're presenting
right.
here? It's a really big gamble. I mean, it's like, I'm amazed at who got published, especially in the late 90s, early mid 2000s, when you're like, oof, it was like a free for all as far as art. There was obviously, the post Jim Lee look, and it had moved on to that Joe Madeira look. That he was on the X-Men, and everything kind of had a cartoon / because even Ed McGuinness kind of had that similar look of just, it's almost cartoon, almost super, classic comics, but it had a Ramos, Ringo. Now, I will say both of those guys are extremely well versed in how to draw. But then there was other ones where it's like, wow, you just were winging it. And you just thought, well, these guys can exaggerate the human proportions, and I'm going to really exaggerate it. But it wasn't exaggerated. It was just, I don't know how to draw it. So good luck. I'm just going to present it this way, and hopefully you can interpret it. It was just incredibly frustrating to see how many people were trying to get in. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. And then once you're in, you're not guaranteed to stay there.
Right.
I mean, you might even be hot and still disappear. One of my favorite artists out there, Kevin Nolan, and I don't know if it's just of his own choice or whatever, but he's a phenomenal penciler, brilliant inker. Everything he does is just his stuff with Doctor Strange. I mean, anything he touches is great. He was doing like Tom Strong Tomorrow stories and some of these other things. I think he did like the Johnny B. Quick character in that, or the Tomorrow stories, not the Tom Strong ones. But in any event, it's like, where is he? This guy's a brilliant, talent. And that Travis Charest dude, brilliant. But where? I mean, beyond any talent I would have. But and you're thinking about, like, if these guys aren't in the industry, what's going on? It's like, if they're not getting regular gigs, or maybe they just choose not to, that's probably more likely the case. But it's like, you look at Jerry Ordway. I had a fantastic conversations, and he did some work for us when we were doing Captain Action toys. He did some, he did a promotional piece for us, and brilliant art, and he was on Superman for ages. But then where's Jerry Ordway now? That's when I kind of realized, this is not sustainable. And, the fight is just too much. And
yeah, I mean, it comes a point when you go, well, I've had enough of this trying to do this kind of thing.
yeah,
And, and there wasn't a self-publishing thing that there is now. Like,
the internet.
There was, the internet, where you could produce your own book if you wanted to. And, we could still do that, I guess, but we've kind of all moved on to something else. But, it was a different time, not successful in a sense that, well, I mean, I can't say we weren't successful. I mean, you were published, and I was published in a way where I was happy with the result. Well, with what I did, but not with the company that did it. So,
is that your cadre or something like that?
Yeah, that's. I don't even want to mention the company, but yeah, I got
edit
some books published, but paid for some other things in my writing, and you certainly got published and stuff like that. So in a way, we succeeded to a point, but I mean, obviously, we wanted more success, and it just didn't happen. But.
Yeah, it would have been nice, because there's a lot of things where it's like, man, we had some solid ideas, and it would be just great to get it out for others to enjoy. Maybe we'll put stuff on Patreon.
Yeah, maybe.
But
or certainly something on a YouTube or something.
Yeah, I will say there was a moment that absolutely closed all the doors for me. And this is, I don't even know if I told this to even, family. So, but I'm at C2E2, and, at this point, I'm in the toy industry, and, I'm working with Marvel on properties. I'm working with DC on properties. I'm working with Star Wars, and so it's not that I'm not in the industry and so forth, but just not in the way like I'm a contributor. I'm actually just I'm using other people's ideas and making them into a physical product. That's basically where I was at. Still enjoying it, still having a great time, but I met with a licensor and we just went walking up and down the aisles, and we're just talking about, the comic industry as a whole, and having a really good time chatting about, like what we could do with this property, and trying to meet with other people to see, I talked with Valiant at the time because they just went under new management. They, basically came back up with this other venture capitalist group and relaunched Valiant. And so we were meeting with them, and this licensor, without really knowing, any of the history that I had or anything like that, we were talking, and I said, yeah, every now and then I keep toying with the idea of, like, getting to draw comics again. I haven't done it in a while. And the dude, without blinking, without even skipping a beat, goes, yeah, it's a young man's game. And it's like, oh, yeah. And it's like, because at that point, we do acknowledge our age, but then all of a sudden it really hit. It's like, yeah, it is really. Because, like, you think about it, you have to be young, you have to be hungry, you have to be willing to take a lot of just absolute crap jobs, and you're scraping by for page rates, and you're hoping you can make the rent. But, when you get to our age, you got kids, you have family, you've got mortgages, you've got rent, you've got, all these other obligations on you that you didn't have as a kid. And also the fact that, when I was doing comics, I also held a full-time job. So when was I getting these pages done? Oh yeah. Well, by not sleeping.
Right. Late at night.
Yeah. And I got into a good rhythm because, like, there was several times when I was just cranking out pages, and if I sketched out the page and got half of it done, I was basically doing a page a day, which is what you're supposed to. But
Right.
like, I wasn't working on one full page a day. It was like half, finishing up one page and starting the next, and then leaving it there. And it's like, whew, okay, I got a good start on the next page. So that the following day, when I came back to start on it, I was like, I wasn't looking at a blank piece of paper. All I was doing is just finishing work, and then I would start on a blank sheet after I had warmed up by finishing things up. Then I could loosen up a little bit to kind of get the page going on the next one, but not complete it. And that system worked well for me to get those books out, but it was just, I was just not getting any sleep. It was, I had actually found that the best I could ever do was to have the Disney's Aladdin, the animated Aladdin, on VHS at the time, run that on the back, and then I would rewind it and play it again, rewind it, play it again while I was doing it, because that cartoon was pretty much action the entire time. It was like there wasn't a lull. There was a few, but for the most part, it was always something hopping. The songs were pretty good, and I was able to just keep drawing. And it was like the weirdest thing, like that, of all the stuff I could have watched or kept me moving through those early hours of the morning as I was trying to wrap that up and then head off to work. It was Aladdin. But
That's interesting how you just said that with music and stuff. Because when I'm feeling very creative, I always put on U2, and it helps to generate ideas. Like, not that I'm stealing from their lyrics or anything. It is the music where I am creative mentally, and Joshua Tree and all that stuff, even newer stuff. It's always when I'm listening to U2, I always feel the most creative. Like, and whether it's U2's on the radio and I start coming up with ideas, or I have ideas and then I put U2 on. I've always
which one causes
associated.
what?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but
Chicken or the
it is a
egg?
trigger effect for me. To like, okay, I suddenly my mind's in a creative mood. I recognize it. I better put some U2 on, and then this will be better. So it's kind of funny.
That's great. I never knew that. All these years, dude. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it's funny because it's like I can if it's music, I'm super productive. If it's an audiobook, I just close up because I'm now divided. Because I thought, well, all I'm doing is just drawing. But I get so engaged in the audiobook that I can't move forward. Just music. Phew. Then I can just keep going and hustle right through this stuff. There's always a little tips and tricks, things that we found along the way. But, I still feel like there's a lot that you and I had done. And I was glad that, having worked with you over the years and collaborated on so many of these stories and these ideas and just cranking them out. And I always felt like there were fresh ideas because, again, attention spans being short. And that was another reason why I was kind of like, as much work as that goes into making a comic book, and you think about all the pages, all the research you do to, like find I need a reference for a building. I need a reference for, whatever. This actor I want a reference to make it look like this person or whomever. And they're like, I have to do this every month for the rest of my life.
Am I sure I want to do that?
Yeah, that's kind of what it hit. It kind of is what it hit, where it's like, man, this is an undertaking,
Yeah. Well, that's why a lot of older artists, they're doing covers. They're not doing interiors.
Yeah.
Yep. That's I can get paid by doing private commissions and some covers, just to keep my name out there,
Yep.
and I'm set. Like that's Steve. I'm sure Steve Rude's not making money doing pages. He's doing personal paintings and stuff like that for buyers, and he's making his money that way.
Yeah. When was the last time you saw a series done by Adam Hughes? I know, like with Brian Boland, I guess his eyesight's gone. It's gone poorly.
So don't talk to me about Brian Boland.
We'll have to explain that in a little bit. But so he's doing everything on the computer, and it's meticulous. But because it's on the computer, he can zoom in and get his line quality the way he wants to. But he's just not fast, as a result. So covers are where he's at. But it's just it's so much work. And for a while there, I remember entertaining the idea of doing, like, back when there was cell animation, like 2D animation. And I had an opportunity to talk with the owner of a company called Electric Tiki, and he was an animator for Disney for years. And he and I got chatting and so forth about the animation process, and this guy just was like, you don't understand how much work goes into just an animated cartoon, and that you look at it's for television animation, you're down to 12 to 24 frames a second. So every second of a cartoon, that's 12 complete drawings, not just one panel in a comic book, but that's 12, and then it jumps up to 32 to 64, but it's usually around 32 for feature animation. And you're like, holy crap. So if that cartoon is an hour and a half long, how many drawings is that? How many years did they spend on that? Pass. I'm out.
Well, now they do it on computers and they can just whip those out. But
Yeah.
I'm sure it takes some skill to. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't, but
Yeah, because you're
uh,
building the 3D,
yeah,
characters and assets and all that stuff. But once it's built, then you got it. You
right.
can just put it in the round, scale it up, scale it down. It's just getting.
Yeah, I watched creation of the cartoon Bluey,
Oh yeah.
uh, and they showed some of how they do it, and it's just amazing what they can do so fast. Like once, like you said, once it's all generated, these characters and backgrounds and stuff, they can place them wherever they want and move them how they want. It's like a puppet show on computer, and uh, it's just crazy how the computer does all the work. And you can focus on story, which by the way, Bluey is amazing. And,
I don't think I've
and
ever watched a single episode. I know of it,
uh,
but I've never
oh,
seen an episode of it.
it's kind of it's a modern day
Blues Clues.
uh, Blue. Well, I mean, it is for adults. It's one of those adults and kids both enjoy it
Oh.
for different reasons. Um, it is smart, and like if you're a parent, you get stuff out of it. If you're a kid, my kids love it. It's funny, it's clever. They're not afraid to touch on subjects that maybe some others don't, but it's all done very well. And it's a good cartoon. It's kind of like I was a Phineas and Ferb fan as well when they were making those. And it's along the same general line as Looney Tunes back when we used to watch them. The adults got something out of it, the
Yeah.
kids got something out of it. It was cleverly done. And that's my Bluey minute.
Yeah, I've got a couple. Gravity Falls was really good in that regard.
Yeah.
A lot of nods to, like, if you know what they're referencing, then good on you. But then the other one was the Amazing World of Gumball, which is phenomenal.
Yep, that was a good one too.
So yeah, the great stuff. Good time to be in cartoons for that. But yeah, you think about the amount of work that goes into all of them. I think one of the greatest documentaries I've seen was called 6 Days, and it was how they made South Park cartoons.
Okay.
And it showed them basically like from I think, what was it, from Sunday to Friday night. They would start with the idea on Sunday or whatever it was, but in 6 days it was on the air.
Wow.
And that's like story concept to on air in 6 days. And they showed the process of making an episode. And, it was just, they documented the whole, like, here's what we do. And then, everything that's going on in their lives. Now, this was at the height of South Park, their fame and so forth. And they had been doing it for several, years. That it got moved over from their little cardboard cutouts or, construction paper cutout characters to all on the computer. And that's what made it possible. But it shows how quickly and how relevant they could be with their cartoons, because it was like, yeah, we can turn something out. And that was even getting the censors to approve it. I mean, it's like down to the minute, like they were turning the thing in. It's like, here's the final upload, it's all done, send it now, because we got 4 minutes before it goes live and is broadcast to the the world.
Right.
It's like, dang, it was right down but it was a fascinating process. Whether you're a fan of South Park or not, it was a brilliant documentary just showing creativity and the willingness to do what it takes to get it out and just keep that pattern going. And, once you're in your element and you've got it dialed in, what you're capable of producing. And they did. It was just a small crew of people, just a handful of animators, and that Trey and Stone, just, here's an idea, let's add more to it and flesh it out. And I think they were like, the first 2 days were spent just hashing out ideas, and then they had like less than 2 days to do all the animation, so they were kind of like building assets for it because they knew like, oh, we're gonna have this and this. Okay, we'll make the assets for that while you guys are still ironing out, so that we can animate it once you have the story.
That's crazy because then they still had to do the audio and
Yeah.
voice work and hire people out, and well, that's crazy.
Yeah, so look it up if you get a chance. It's a really, like I said, even if you're not a fan, it is a fascinating process. Do you have anything you wanted to add to like what you hoped to have done in comics? Like where would you see yourself in an alternate universe? Where would you ultimately like to have gotten to in the comic world?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I liked the stuff we worked on. I mean, my ultimate goal probably would have been to work for DC. I mean, no offense, Marvel, that would have been fun too. But I'd have loved to have said, "Hey, I wrote such and such for like 2 years." And I guess every creator wants to be great run, on a certain character or anything like that. I would, I had some story ideas for Doctor Fate and how I would have handled him. I think I had a Hawkman series too
Yep.
in mind, and so I would love to have worked on that. For as much as I love team books, collecting them, I don't think I had any ideas for any team books whatsoever. It was all solo characters. I did try to do a couple like Marvel ideas. I had this before they revised the Defenders. I had this new Defenders kind of an idea and wrote out a little, plot and stuff like that, which was kind of fun. I would have loved to have messed around with some characters. I'm sure I have a Legion story in my head, one or two that I wrote down. But I just would have liked to have played in the universe. Like the Image guys, branch off onto our own little section, and create something that was unique, and just have fun with it. I'm trying to think what other DC characters I had written
We
down.
did
But
when Elseworlds was a big deal, and DC was really kind of like looking at the bunch of different Elseworlds because they didn't have the multiverse, like with the Crisis, they did that in. So they were like, going, well, we can just create these things and we'll just call them Elseworlds. They're not really in continuity; they're just standalone. And we had that Batman story, and that was I thought it had been a fantastic story. It would have been great to have made it. And it's always that, it could have been, and not that, we're trying to wax nostalgic about, oh, if only, we're I don't want to sound like Uncle Rico and Napoleon Dynamite. If the coach had put me in, um, but there is that level of like, that could have done something. That could have been a great concept. It's just, it's also another level of like, who's looking at these things? You had to be in the right place at the right time. I don't know how many
the right
times
people.
it's like, hey, you made it out to Chicago. That's great. Now, we're going to be in San Diego Comic-Con. Are you going to be there? And it's like, dude, I'm not flying all the way out. It was already beyond my budget to be here in Chicago.
We're eating tuna cans. That's
it. Yeah. It's a tuna convention. Tuna can.
A 3-can convention.
Yeah. But it was just.
But yeah, our Batman story was really good.
Yep.
I thought it had a lot of potential to it.
Yeah, and then we had several like hits and misses. We had our own proprietary characters that we were going to do. That was like, if we had an opportunity to get into an image and present a concept. There's a YouTube guy called I can't remember his name, but his channel is called Comic Tropes. I don't know if you've ever seen any of his work.
Yeah, some.
Yeah, he just Very straightforward, well paced, well put together, well researched episodes. But he was talking about how he got into contact with like Robert Kirkman and had good connections there, and then presented an idea in one of his more recent videos about how he got into comics and had something really like, he was a writer and had worked with this artist, but because of mix ups on his end of how he was approaching something, ultimately he sabotaged himself and never hit it because he didn't complete things on time. And it was an interesting video, but it felt like I absolutely was like, I'm with you 100%, comics trope guy. I can see all the pain and the effort, and yet unfulfilled. I think all in all, we had opportunities. We did get some stuff done, and it was a good enough that I was like, yeah, I'm happy with what happened. I moved on to other things. I worked in toys and games and kids and family and health, and it's like, yeah, it all worked out.
I'm kind of happy with it. Sure. Did I want more to happen? Sure,
Oh
absolutely.
yeah.
If you have some well-intentioned comic dreams that you'd like to share, let us know. Our email is, and this is why I love comics, at gmail.com. You can join us on the X or the Twitter at, and this is why I L1. We're on the Facebook. Come join our group there. And this is why I love comics podcast. Our webpage is, and this is why I love comics podcast.buzzsprout.com. Hey, I did my first TikTok about the artist brackets of madness today, and it's out there. It's got 800 views so far.
Nice. Very nice.
But I need more views. I need people to go check it out and to comment, and we want to get this out there as far as we can. So we need your help to promote it, to help it out, to move it along, because I want to gather as many followers as we can for it. I'm going to do another one probably tomorrow regarding a matchup of the artists bracketed themselves. We are at Why I Love Comics podcast for the TikTok, so check that out. So you can support the show, become a Patreon member for as much as $5 a month. You can get a bunch of extra stuff, and we got a lot of good plans coming up for that as well. Thanks to our supporters and friends of the show, producer Tony, co-host Matt 2.0, Kevin, Jamie, Matt 10.0, who stopped by last Friday at my D&D club at the school and dropped off like 30 comic books that he didn't want anymore and just kind of left. He just had a bag, gave them to me, and left.
Yep.
And there was some good stuff in there. I'm going to talk about it next time.
Perfect. Nice comic hall talk. That would be great.
He is Matt 10.0 for a reason.
Yeah, you don't have to go to the comic shop. The comic shop comes to you. Right.
Yeah, and a lot of it was newer stuff. He's amazing. Thanks, Matt. And of course, thanks to Thunder Chicken for the tunes. Check them out on Spotify. And we'll see you next time. Yeah, I did like 3 or 4 rounds of TikTok. Deleted. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I look like a pudgy old man